What if I tell you that I am 100% sure that you don't understand the lift force on airplanes? This topic is so controversial in the aerospace sector, and today we will explain it from scratch.
Hi, I'm Sergio Hidalgo from Supersonic, and today my purpose is to demonstrate you that lift is much more complicated than you actually thought. I bet you have listened that airplanes fly because of Bernoulli's principle. Let me guess. Airfoils are shaped in such a way that the air that flows above the wing accelerates. And since pressure and velocity are directly related due to Bernoulli equation, pressure decreases. So now there's a pressure difference between the upper and lower part of the wing that creates a force, the lift. But there's something to remark here, because we have said that the lift is generated by the decreasing in pressure on the upper part of the wing. That comes from the accelerating air on the upper part of the wing as well. And we do know that this is true, but let me ask you, why? Why the air accelerates on the upper part of the wing? If you are not able to answer me to that question, you actually don't understand it. But there's nothing wrong with it, because I'm going to explain the lift in a much more easier way. And for those that are about to respond that there is an equal time theory path or whatever, please just stop there. Also, there's no need for a specific shape in order to generate lift. Everything in this world generates lift if you give it propulsion and orientate it in the correct position against the air. Airfoils are used by airplanes not because they generate lift, but because they do it with the best ratio lift to drag generated. For example, you could lift a Boeing 747 with flat wings, but maybe you will need the double of wing area and much more thrust, which is crazy. Trying to explain the lift just by talking about the airfoil shape has no sense. It's like trying to explain why boats float talking about their shape. But we know that, for example, a spheric ball floats too, or even a piece of wood floats too. Something I really don't understand is why people get easy intuition about why helicopters do fly, but when talking about airplanes, it's like the physics has changed or something like that. Of course not, the physics is exactly the same. Airplanes' wings and helicopters' blades are exactly the same. They are just optimized in a different way. The helicopter's blades are optimized for rotation, and the wings of an airplane are optimized just for a straight and level flight. So please answer yourself. If I ask you, why does an helicopter fly? What will you say? As we all know from high school, if we want to create a force, there will be a reaction, as Newton said. For example, if we shoot a gun, we all know that there will be a recoil when pulling the trigger. That is because the gun pushes suddenly the bullet, and as Newton said, the same amount of momentum will be transferred to the gun. So in the end, the total net momentum will be zero. That is exactly what happens when talking about airplanes flying. Since the airplane wants to create a force upwards in order to balance its weight, somehow the airplane must change the momentum of the air downwards. And that is why, in general terms, the airplane ends up by deflecting air downwards. Period. We could just end there. If you ask me why does an helicopter fly, I'll say that the helicopter is pushing air downwards. So basically the airplane is doing the same. I don't really understand why, but here there is a big controversial argument between engineers. On the one hand, we have those that like to explain the lift by the pressure difference on the wing, and on the other hand, we have those that like to explain the lift by the downwards deflection of the air. But which one is correct? The truth is, both of them are correct. There's no need for argument here. We do know that there is a pressure difference on the wing, but we also know that there is a deflection of the air downwards. So the interesting question here may be, are both phenomena correlated? I mean, is it possible to have lift just by deflecting the air downwards? Or vice versa, is it possible to have lift just by pressure difference without having the deflection of the air downwards? So the answer here is no, you need both of them. Both are directly related. Look, let me start from the beginning. Imagine we've got a particle of air that has this trajectory. Here, the particle of air is changing the direction, and following first Newton's law, if anything changes its initial trajectory, is because there is a force. And when talking about air, forces are mainly generated by pressure differences. So if air deflects in this direction, it's because the pressure has a distribution like this. High pressure out of the circle, low pressure inside. And that's why, for example, tornadoes have so little pressure in the inside. If you've understood this, it's so easy to notice that both deflection and pressure differences are directly related. Let's plot here an airfoil and let's jump into our example. On the lower part of the wing, the air will do something like this. Since the center of the circle will be around here, pressure will be lower there and larger in the surface of the wing, which we do know is correct. And same process can be followed on the upper part of the wing, where if air deflects like this, it's because there is lower pressure inside of the circle than outside. So the pressure gradient there will be something like this, which we know is correct. So yeah, if you want to deflect the air downwards, you will need a pressure field like that. And here is the most interesting question of the video. Which came first, the egg or the chicken? I mean, the pressure field or the deflection of the air downwards? We have said that air deflects because there is a pressure force that pushes air downwards. But if air does not deflect, there won't exist pressure distribution. I always like to think about this like the airfoil is generating the pressure field and the pressure field is deflecting the air downwards. Again here, I've been talking about airfoils for convenience, but I could have used a flat sheet of wood or even a person positioned against the air. Fun thing here is Bernoulli has not been used in the whole explanation. That does not mean that Bernoulli is incorrect. The Bernoulli equation is an energy equation, so of course it's true, we could have used it. But the thing is, people try to understand the lift by looking at the equation, when always we do understand how things work and then we model the equations.
I've been looking for the perfect example to let you understand this, and finally I found it. A turbine engine. If I ask you, how does it generate thrust? I bet the first thing you came up with is that it pushes a lot of air so fast. But also there is another answer. You could also analyze the thrust by components. The thrust generated by the compressor, by the combustion chamber, the turbine, you name it. For example, all the blades in the compressor are like small wings that have more pressure on the lower part. In the turbine, the blades are positioned in the opposite way. That is why the turbine generates drag. But the main thing here is that the jet that exits the engine is a consequence of all the parts, like in the wing of an airplane. The amount of air that is pushed downwards is the consequence of how strong is the pressure gradient. So in summary, we need a deflection of the air and a pressure difference between upper and lower part of the wing. Without one of them, you won't have the other, neither the lift force. I hope this has clarified some difficult concepts to you. If you don't want to miss the following episodes, please consider subscribing to the channel, because we're gonna talk about lift in supersonic airplanes, hypersonic flight, or even misconceptions about supersonic flow. But above all, remember always to think supersonic. By the way, if you speak Spanish, please come to my personal channel, because I've been uploading videos for more than 3 years in a row about aerospace engineering, so you'll love it.